The McRib sandwich is gone forever from McDonald's, but don't you worry, you're not gonna miss it one bit, because in this video, we're gonna make a McRib sandwich, but we're gonna make it bigger, better, and tastier than you can ever get in the drive-thru line. Before I get into the recipe video, check the description box below, but enough talking, let's get cooking.
The first step to prepping these ribs for the McRib sandwich is to remove the membrane on the bottom. I used to think that taking off the membrane made them more tender, which it really doesn't. But one thing that the membrane does is it stops from flavor from going into the ribs. So we're going to use a paper towel and we're going to pull it off. And this one didn't come off too easy, but took a little while and we got it off. We're going to cut off the end to square these ribs up, and then we're going to find the center, and we're going to cut them in half, and we're going to use this full rack to make 2 sandwiches. And I went with a St. Louis cut just because they're a little bit more square. For a binder, we're going to use just some standard yellow mustard that we're going to cover the ribs with. And the purpose of the binder is to allow the spices to adhere to the ribs. We could put the spices dry on the ribs, but using a binder like this yellow mustard helps the spices stick much better and gives it a much better coating to the spices on the ribs. So we're just going to use our hands to rub nice and evenly all over the ribs, front and back, and the sides, in order to get this yellow mustard nice and spread out. And then once we got that binder on there, we're going to use some seasoning. First, we're going to start off with my base seasoning, which is a blend of garlic powder, onion powder, salt, and pepper. If you're a regular here at Chef Ange, you probably already have some in your kitchen. If not, I'll throw a link to the video recipe in the description. And now for our barbecue rub, we're going to go with some of the rib rack barbecue rub. We're just keeping it nice and standard and easy. This recipe is in substitution of driving through a drive-through line, so I'm trying to make this as easy as possible. Feel free to use whatever barbecue rub that you like best. We're going to pat the dry spices into the binder, and we're going to flip them over, and we're going to do the same for the other side, a little bit of the base seasoning, and then the barbecue rub. Make sure you're getting a nice even coating of both. So once these are patted on both the flat sides, we'll pick up any of the loose spices just by tapping the other sides of the ribs into the spices, just so we can get a good coating on them. No flavors left behind. And now we're going to throw these bone side down. You can see how flat they are on a baking tray lined with aluminum foil and parchment paper. These are going to go in a 325-degree oven for about 1 hour before we wrap them.
Now we got our ribs in the oven, let's head over to the stove. We're gonna take some store-made barbecue sauce, we're gonna cut it with some vinegar, and we're gonna make a special barbecue sauce for these McRibs.
I couldn't choose which barbecue sauce I wanted to use, so we're going to use 2 of my favorites. This is Stubbs. They make an unbelievable barbecue sauce, and this is a little bit more vinegar-based than it is sweet. And now for the sweet, we went with my other favorite. This is the Sweet Baby Ray's. And this one is a little bit sweet more than it is vinegar, so we're getting the best of both worlds. And now we're going to cut that with just a little bit of apple cider vinegar. This doesn't really need to cook. It just needs to come up to being a little bit hot. So we're going to keep this stirring just so nothing burns over a low heat until it gets nice and hot, and then we're totally done and the sauce is ready. The only other thing we have to prep is some white onions to garnish this beautiful sandwich. So we're going to take our mandolin, and we're going to slice these onions super duper thin. You could do this with a knife, but the mandolin is the tool of choice here. So now that these have been cooking for about 1 hour, we're going to pull them out and we're going to wrap them. So I got 2 pieces of heavy-duty aluminum foil, and I'm always using heavy-duty when I'm wrapping ribs. Never want to use the really thin stuff. You don't want any holes. We're going to sprinkle some brown sugar and put 2 pats of butter on top of each one. The fact that you're even watching a video about making a McRib doesn't mean that you're on a diet, so let's not try to make the healthy version. We got to go brown sugar and butter for full flavor here. So now we're going to lay these ribs meat side down, bone side up, on top of the brown sugar and the butter, and we're going to wrap these nice and tight just by folding over one side, then folding over the other, and then crimping in the ends. And you want to make sure that you fold this nice and neat. It's just going to make unfolding them a little easier. And once these have been folded up, we're going to put them back on the baking tray, and these are going to go back in the oven for anywhere between 1.5 hours to 2 hours until they're super tender. Timing is going to vary based upon the ribs in the oven, but once we pull them out, we'll be able to see if they've been cooked enough. So after these have been in there for about 1.5 hours, I'm going to let them sit for about 10 to 15 minutes You can still see that they're still super duper hot. And I want to work with these ribs while they're somewhat hot because it's going to be a little easier to pull the bones out. And you can see that these are cooked enough because with just a little bit of effort and without burning my fingers, and that's why I'm using these gloves, I can pull the bones out pretty easily just by giving a little twist and a little pull. And I'm being really, really careful to make sure not to damage any of the meat. The beauty behind the McRib sandwich is that it's a boneless rib sandwich, so we got to get the bones out without damaging the meat product. And once we flip this over, check out this beautiful top that we got going on top of that half rack. And now we're going to do the same thing for the other half of this rib rack. The rack I just pulled had only bones. This side's got some cartilage on the other side that we're going to have to pull out. So I took out my kitchen pliers. These are not ones that I took out of the toolbox. I just keep these in the kitchen as I think they're in a helpful kitchen tool to like pull out salmon bones and stuff like this. So now I'm going to work with the pliers and my hands to remove any of those cartilage ends because we want to make sure that this is completely boneless and you can just bite into that beautiful sandwich without having to pull out any bones or cartilage out. And again, look at the beautiful top on this thing. That color is flavor, my friends. Now let's take some of that barbecue sauce glaze that we made before and we're going to brush this right over the top. We're going to try to make a nice thin coating over both of these half racks. And I'm just using my silicone brush to give this a nice even coating without overdressing it. We just want a thin coating that we're going to put back in the oven and it's going to adhere to the ribs very nicely. So now these are going to go back in the oven. I've turned the oven up a little bit to 350. They're just going to be in there for about 5-10 minutes just to solid up that barbecue sauce. And now let's talk buns. I'm going with a long Italian roll here. And what I was looking for is something that could fit the shape of the rib, but still has that same consistency of a soft white bread that McDonald's uses for their McRib sandwich. We got to throw some pickles on there. You can use any pickle of your choice. These are my favorite pickles by far that you can get at the supermarket. Shout out to all the fine people at Wickles. If anybody is watching, please send me some pickles. We love your product. So I'm going to take these out and just throw them on some paper towel just so they're not so soggy and they don't sog up the sandwich. Our ribs are now done, so we're going to pull these out of the oven because the first set of glaze that we put on is nice and solid. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to sauce these up a little bit before they hit the bun, so a little bit more of that same barbecue sauce glaze over the top. Not too much, and I don't want to drown them. I just want to get a nice thin coating of flavor on the outside of these before we turn these into this wonderful sandwich. So now we're going to be really careful to transfer them over onto the bun. You can see that I got a little bit of a hangover on the bread on the ends, but this is the best I could do to find a commercial bun that's going to fit these ribs. So on goes the thinly sliced onions. Now we're going to carefully and strategically place these pickles all over the sandwich to make sure that we get a pickle in every single bite. When you're designing a sandwich, you're thinking about how the sandwich is going to eat, and you want every single bite to have every single element. Let's complete these with the top bun, and look how amazing these sandwiches look. And now for comparison purposes, we went to McDonald's and we did pick up a McRib just so we can compare the sandwich that we made to the original McRib sandwich. And you can see, taking this thing out of the box, it's a little underwhelming, especially when it's next to the sandwich that we made. I know we say size doesn't matter, but it definitely matters here. The sandwiches that we made look a lot like what you see in the McRib advertisements. Theirs, not so much.
This McDonald's sandwich looks so pathetic next to this one. The idea of the McRib sandwich is what gives it all its glory, but this is what they execute, and this is really what it should be. And for taste test purposes, we're going to check out the McRib sandwich first. So you can see that it's supposed to look like a rib sandwich, but this is all just processed pork shoulder. That's all just smashed into this mold. The pickles are kind of funny that there's only 2 pickles and they're only over on one side. Like if you ate this bite here, there would be no onions or no pickles. So let's help them out a little bit, and we'll spread this out a little bit for science purposes. The one thing that McDonald's did do pretty good is they got their meat to bun ratios pretty good. I got a little bit of bread hanging off, but this was the best bun that I could get for the shape of the ribs. Middle of this, I mean, it's a decent meat to bread ratio. The bread is super duper soft, but let's bite into it and let's see what the original tastes like. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's definitely not great. Especially for the potential that this sandwich could have, like a rib sandwich with pickles and onions. It sounds absolutely delicious, but this is okay. Now, let's see how we did. And we're gonna do exactly the same. We're gonna cut the sandwich in half. Let's check out what that looks like inside. So, super duper delicious. Really, really nice, meaty ribs, pickles, onions, the super soft bread. Let's give this a bite and let's see how we did. I think when McDonald's wanted to make the McRib, this is what they had in mind, but this is the best they can do because this sandwich is amazing. Oh my God. The ribs are super duper tender. And the pickles and the onions cut through the sauciness of the sandwich so well. This is a 10 out of 10 sandwich. Oh my. I am totally blown away at how good this is. And now I can understand why people are sad that the McRib is going. But you don't have to be sad. Make this sandwich and you'll absolutely love it. And it's way, way, way better than this one. Oh man. While I'm finishing the other half of the sandwich, you can watch another video. Check out my Mississippi chicken sandwich. That's a really awesome slow cooker chicken sandwich that's out of this world, just as good as this one, if not even better. And if you like ribs, check out my Asian sticky ribs recipe, really easy rib recipe, all done in the oven. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.